Hi everyone, it's Quickie Baby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I want to talk through some of my feelings about preferential matchmaking and premium vehicles. Now, I always have these, should we say, fairly heavy ideas, and I really want to kind of get them off my chest and just talk through them and hopefully, create some interesting discussion about it. Now, premium tanks in World of Tanks. Originally, they were kind of split, half and half. You had vehicles like the Lerva and the T-34 that did not have preferential matchmaking, and they usually had pretty good features like high penetration, but really bad DPM. They were really slow lumbering, didn't have the best hull armor, at least until recently where the Lerva was significantly buffed, and the T-34 had things like awful gun handling and even poor view range until, I think about a year ago or so, where they did buff it up, I guess, because obviously natural power creep in a game, which is completely understandable. But there were other premium tanks that had preferential matchmaking, something like a Type 59, or for example the 112 on the enemy team. And the KV-5 is a very good example. It was a lot cheaper than all of the other premium tanks in the game. It only cost 7,500 gold, where I think most tier 10 heavies are probably much about like 10k or 11k. Now, what this meant is that because they had preferential matchmaking, they were slightly cheaper, and their statistics could be worse. Nobody's going to think that a KV-5 can be ever as competitive as a defender. The KV-5 has got awful penetration, and it also has a big weak point on the front of the tank that makes it kind of useless against either knowledgeable players who use their skill of weak points and not just premium ammo to compensate to go through the weak point on the KV-5, or alternatively when you just get into one of those nice matchups and you can kind of smash through the enemy team. But the KV-5 of course does have really good DPM to go with it. Now, what my point is that preferential matchmaking tanks, I think, were actually a really good thing for World of Tanks. And the reason why I feel this is because when somebody's playing a premium tank, they've paid for it, or they've done some kind of mission to be able to get it. Most of the time they've actually paid for it, I think in the vast majority of cases, especially at tier 8. So they don't really care whether their tank is absolutely amazing or is kind of maybe just a little bit worse than, shall we say, the base level at tier 8 heavy or tier 8 medium, for example, because they're going to make great credits anyway. And let's be honest, the reason why you play your premium tanks, at least it never used to be because they were just blatantly overpowered. It used to be because they had great credit income and they made good crew training, and sometimes they just had hilarious features that were really fun to play with. For example, like the Togger or the KV-5. Nothing feels quite as fun as a KV-5 platoon when you're just bombing it downhill and you ram somebody, or you can just feel like you can mess around in that tank. However, Wargaming decided that preferential matchmaking tanks, maybe they didn't sell enough, or maybe the players had this idea of that they wanted to have a vehicle that was as good, if not better, than the standard counterpart. Because let's be honest, Wargaming are a business and they want to make money, right? Now, the thing that sucks is that because the preferential matchmaking tanks were actually slightly worse than regular vehicles, you didn't mind meeting them when you were in an equal tiered vehicle. You didn't mind meeting them when you were in a lower tiered vehicle. You know what, when I was playing my Cromwell back in the day, or my Comet, I used to love seeing a 112 before its lower plate was buffed massively, or a KV-5 on the enemy team. I didn't mind that person had paid their money to be able to get that tank, because I felt that, yeah, I got a chance against them. I can pen one of their weak points, and the opportunity to get a huge amount of experience because they're higher tier than me, kind of soften the impact that somebody's just paid to be able to get to a high tier that maybe they didn't quite deserve, or it's not so much about them not deserving it. It's more of a case of the more powerful that you make the premium vehicles, the more impact that they can have in the matchmaker. And that's something that we're seeing these days with vehicles like the Scorpion G being the most played tank in World of Tanks. Absolutely crazy, right? And now a premium tank is overtaking vehicles like the good old KV back in the day, back when it was at tier 5 and you had the KV-2 gun on it. And you had vehicles as well that were immensely popular like the IS-3. Now, regular tanks are not as popular as premium tanks. And so that means that the strength of those premium tanks is of the utmost importance, right? And so that makes me feel almost guilty when I play some of my premium vehicles. Obviously, I guess that's a first world problem. I'm the kind of player who's looking for a challenge. I know this isn't the same for everybody. A lot of people just want to try and have every advantage they can in World of Tanks, and they kind of don't care if it's a fair fight. All they care is dealing damage and just taking out the enemy team. I understand that, but is that healthy for the balance of the game, and is it healthy for the game's player base and just having a successful version of World of Tanks at the moment and also going forwards, if this is something that we're going to be seeing more and more of? Now, I think that Wargaming might have learned a thing or two about the Patriot and the Defender. I think these tanks were just absolutely wild, and really, I just feel as if when I play these vehicles that I have a huge advantage over a standard enemy vehicle, and I usually have an advantage over a lot of the premium tanks on the enemy team. And the problem is that with your premium vehicles, you also have exceptionally skilled crews usually in those tanks. So you have a huge advantage over the standard vehicles anyway, and you're usually more experienced in those vehicles because you maybe played them 50, 100, some people even played premium tanks, well, like 1,000 times. How's somebody who's, for example, just jumped into a Panther II going to deal with somebody who's got a 6-skill crew in their Patriot and has played like 600 games in the tank? I don't think I've played 600 games in the Patriot. I'd just like to go out and say that. But hopefully you're starting to understand my point. And so, look, I know this is never going to happen, but it's just something I've had this idea going around my head for the last few months about what has really kind of annoyed me that Wargaming have done, and maybe just little things that maybe they haven't really appreciated with the obvious easy decisions. It kind of makes perfect sense, right? Let's make premium tanks just as good if not better than regular vehicles, and then more people will want to buy premium tanks and then more money will be made. But I think that they just had this, maybe unknowingly, had a fantastic feature. That was that the premium vehicles were slightly worse than the standard vehicles back in the day with preferential matchmaking. I don't think anyone really ever had a problem with there being an IS-6 on the enemy team. You didn't feel as if you were now at a disadvantage because you signed up in your IS-3, because, you know, you had the penetration to be able to go through the front of that IS-6 armor, at least fairly reliably, and if he aimed at your weak points, he'd be able to go through you. Now against something like a Defender, something that somebody's just basically, you've obviously never been able to get the Defender for free, so anyone who's got a Defender has dumped in about 30, 40 pounds into the game. $50, $60, euros, or whatever you want to call it. And now you feel that when you sign up in an IS-3 and you meet a Defender on the enemy team, you're kind of putting your team at a disadvantage. And so, yeah, preferential matchmaking tanks. While Wargaming have obviously, they've kind of gone back on their idea of buffing them substantially and removing their preferential matchmaking, because that really wasn't a very popular idea, was it? Didn't go down very well with the community. It almost opened up a nuclear blast from the community there on Wargaming. But I still think that just these preferential matchmaking tanks, I don't think they were ever bad, and I have no idea why we would shy away from it. Why wouldn't we want to have premium tanks that were just as good or hopefully worse than the standard vehicles? And so it worries me that now Wargaming are buffing all of those preferential matchmaking tanks. I understand that people who have them, now that they're useless because of the key reason why they're not so useful in the game at the moment, and that would be the fact that the matchmaker has just been screwed up with this terrible template system. Wargaming, please get rid of 357, loosen it, put it back to what it used to be. Like, sometimes it sucked even more, but most of the time it was just not as predictable as it is. But I think the real reason why Wargaming are wanting to buff all of those old school preferential matchmaking tanks is because they know nobody's buying them now. Nobody wants to buy a Type 59 at the moment. Nobody wants to buy a KV-5. Everybody's waiting for the sale of that Scorpion or that Patriot and that Defender. And who can blame them? Nobody can blame players for not wanting to purchase a vehicle that is slightly underpowered. And so by buffing it up and still keeping its preferential matchmaking, it's just a very dangerous game to play. Talking about a very dangerous game to play, should I actually commentate on what's going on right now? Okay, I'm about to fight a 112 with an SU-100Y, and I say that we've got to get into artillery cover, and I'm hoping that I can bait the shell. I bounce off his lower plate with a standard round by the looks of it, and I'm going to load another standard round. Looks like I bounce off his lower plate again, but now I start dabbing the 2 key to fire some premium rounds, and finally we track him in place. Now I've got to go backwards and forwards, try and hopefully get him to shoot my mantlet, and he's going to shoot an HE shell down on my hull. Wow, did not expect that. And so I leave my team alone against the SU-100. Well, I leave my team alone against the 112 on the enemy team. Go SU-100Y. Oh my word, that 112 is still firing high explosive rounds. Would you believe it? He would probably been able to take out the SU have been firing AP with a little bit of an artillery spash. Will the SU be able to do it? All he needs to do right now is to reverse. All he needs to do is to reverse. Stop pushing into the 112, reverse and shoot him in the side of the hull. And it's so simple. No, that's not a penetrating shot. No, okay, yeah. All right, buddy, good try. I'm gonna put like a little sad smiley in the chat because I really thought we might be able to take this one down. And I just noticed, look at this replay bug. Okay, 112. If you've ever wondered what a tank looks like without its tracks in World of Tanks, well, there you go. So I guess a little bit of a misplay there by me. I forgot that the 112's lower plate is now 140 millimeters thick because, yeah, why do we need to have weak points on Chinese premium tier 8 tanks with preferential matchmaking? Alright, anyway, high caliber here for the Patriot, 6,300 damage in that 10-minute round, and a whopping amount of credits achieved because I was running a 50% credit booster. I would want to go on about those 50% credit boosters and the impact that I think that they have for the health of the matchmaker. Well, that's probably what I'm going to have to leave for another story. Alright, well, ladies and gents, I'm sorry if any of you didn't like this video. I'm sorry if you didn't like my opinion on preferential matchmaking tanks. But it's something that I feel like I have to do more of on this channel. And if just for my health, I keep all of these ideas in my head and they keep all going around, I think I just want to get a few things off my chest and just see your opinion as well. So I'd be happy to hear. Do you feel like a premium tank needs to be kind of 10% better than a standard vehicle because otherwise why would you choose to purchase it? Or like me, do you feel that if you preferred it when they had preferential matchmaking tank, the matchmaker didn't screw them over, and then you probably didn't feel so bad when you signed up in your tier 6 and 7 and even your tier 8 tanks? It wasn't kind of like a Defender and a Patriot on the enemy team. Anyway, that's it for today, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. But if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.